All right, welcome to another episode of The Rundown. We had some big Monday night football games, but I'm going to start off talking about Tampa Bay and Houston. And it was just a defensive game for the most part. But first two possessions, Houston and Tampa Bay were able to get touchdowns. And I was thinking, okay, this might be a high scoring game. It may be in the 20s, but it just wasn't that whatsoever. Houston was able to come down and get a field goal. Tampa Bay was able to come down and get a touchdown. And it was just 14-10 throughout the second and third quarter. And it was just punts all around for the most part. And Tampa Bay was begging for Houston to win this game, but Houston just couldn't capitalize whatsoever. Offensive line was terrible. Troy Aikman talked about this on the broadcast, just how Laken Tomlinson was absolutely getting pummeled and destroyed. CJ Stroud, whenever he had to drop back and pass, he would just have rushers in his face. Didn't really have anybody open, and he just couldn't get the ball out of his hands. And I know that Tampa Bay's defense is really, really good, but you got to help your quarterback out somewhat, and he just didn't have any help whatsoever. I mean, Baker Mayfield, on the other hand, I mean, they sort of struggled passing the ball. He did have 215 passing yards, but at least they were able to run the ball with Bucky Irving. He had 71 yards for 17 carries, but CJ Stroud, he just didn't have any of that whatsoever. But Houston's defense was able to show up. They were able to get a block punt midway through the fourth quarter, and because of that, Houston was able to get a field goal out of it. Houston's defense was able to stop Tampa Bay once again, and Nick Chubb was able to run in for a 25-yard touchdown with about 2 minutes and 10 seconds left, and Houston takes a 19-14 lead. But unfortunately, that wasn't enough. And I have to talk about Houston's running the ball situation a little bit more. Nick Chubb was 12 carries for 43 yards. Woody Marks was 3 carries for 14 yards. And if it wasn't for that 25-yard touchdown, it would have looked much, much worse than it already looks. So CJ evidently had a lot going against him. But Tampa Bay, they get the ball back with about 2 minutes left. And Baker, he showed up and he was clutch like he has been in Tampa Bay. And there was like a crucial 4th and 10 where like the pocket is collapsing and Baker's just able to get out of it, and he just gets a 15-yard gain out of it. And that was really, really, really impressive. And Baker is not known as a super athlete, but he has okay athleticism where from time to time he can escape pressure. And it just shows that Baker really, really has some guts. And I talked about the things CJ had against him, and Baker also had some things going against him for sure. I mean, Luke Getke, the right tackle, he went out. Christian Wirfs, he has been out for this season, and to do that without your top linemen and with Houston's defensive line being awesome, that was, again, really, really impressive by Baker. And I know that this isn't exactly breaking news, but I just love how he's bouncing back after being in Cleveland, where that last year he plays through a bum shoulder. He obviously didn't play very well, and he just took the blame for it, and nobody showed up for him. His coaches didn't stand up for him. His teammates didn't really stand up for him. And Odell Beckham's father tried to just castigate him for not getting his son the ball, and for some reason, those two just never had any good chemistry whatsoever. He gets shipped out. They bring Deshaun Watson, and we all know how that went. He goes to Carolina. It didn't really work out there. I mean, that team stunk. And then he goes to the Rams to start for a few games because Matthew Stafford got injured, and he played well in those few games. And then he was able to go to Tampa Bay, got the starting job, and ever since then, he's played really, really well. They've made the playoffs for the past 2 seasons, and if everything goes well and they don't have any other injuries, they're probably going to make the playoffs again this year. He won a playoff game against Philadelphia. So, kudos to Baker. I just love how he was kind of in the dumps, and he talked about how he was in the dumps after that last year in Cleveland and just bouncing around a little bit. But luckily, now he's found a home, and he's a franchise quarterback. So, credit to him. And Houston, CJ Stroud, when it comes to receiving talent, all he has is Nico Collins and Dalton Schultz as premier receivers. Other than that, he just doesn't have much going for him. And Houston, they're going to have to invest in their receiving core and, of course, their offensive line, especially since they traded Laramie Tunzel. And I hope that in the draft, they're able to get some more receivers and maybe a decent O lineman. Tank Dell is going to come back next year. I don't know how he's going to look after he had that major injury. Hopefully, he can kind of be the same player again, but who knows if that's going to happen. So CJ is just going to need some more help, and I think Houston is in real trouble this year. They're 0-2, and they have played against two good teams with the Rams and the Bucks. I mean, it would have been ideal if they had won against the Bucks, but they just weren't able to capitalize on their good defense. And their next six remaining games are really tough. They face the Jags, the Titans, the Ravens, Seattle, the 49ers, and Denver. And that's a tough slate. And there's no gimme wins really except Tennessee, and that's a division rival. And division rivals are sometimes just weird. But I'd say that they probably win against Tennessee because Tennessee stinks. Other than that, it's looking real tough. I'll just say that because of their defense, they'll be able to win a couple more games, and then they'll be able to go 3-3 in that stretch. And if they go 3-3 during that stretch, that's gonna get them to 3-5, and 3-5. I just don't think in that division is gonna cut it. I thought that it would be a bad division, but I think that I was wrong. Indianapolis is looking much better than I thought they would coming into this season. Daniel Jones is playing really well. We'll see if they'll be able to keep that up. I mean, they obviously aren't world beaters, but I think that they can absolutely win 10, 11 games. And I don't think it's going to be like the Saints last year where the Saints started off hot. Oh, they're 2-0. Oh, they might be able to give Tampa Bay or Atlanta a run for their money. I don't think they're going to fall off a cliff like that, but I think that they can win double-digit games. And I think that should be enough for them to win the division. And I just think, unfortunately, this year Houston is going to be out of it. And hopefully, like I said, they're able to give CJ Stroud more offensive talent. And unfortunately, the discourse around him is going to be, oh, CJ Stroud, he started off so hot his rookie year, but he's just slumped. It's like, well, yeah, because the offensive line freaking stinks, and he's not exactly like Mr. Mobile, and he can't, like, run out of that like he's freaking Lamar Jackson, and you have to give a guy some wide receiving talent. I mean, we saw Matthew Stafford in Detroit, and I mean, he wasn't exactly winning a lot of games because the talent there stunk. I mean, he had Calvin Johnson, but other than that, he wasn't exactly playing with Pro Bowl players, and then you put him in LA and it's like, oh wow, Matthew Stafford is really good. It's like, yeah, no shit. He just needed a good infrastructure, and that's what CJ needs. But unfortunately, I just don't think that a lot of people are going to recognize that. So Houston, it's looking bad for them this year, and I think probably Indianapolis wins that division. We'll see about Jacksonville. I mean, that loss against Cincinnati was really bad, especially since Joe Burrow went out with that turf toe, and Jake Browning had like 2 or 3 turnovers, and despite that, Cincinnati was able to pull that one out, and Brian Thomas just didn't look good whatsoever. So, yeah, now I want to talk about the Chargers and the Raiders, and that first play was an omen for just how the night would go for Las Vegas offensively, where Geno just threw that interception, and I just thought like, oh no, is it going to be that type of night? Because I've watched Geno in Seattle, and that's kind of like what he does a little bit. And the game was nip and tuck a little bit, but once Justin Herbert threw that 60-yard bomb to Quentin Johnson, I was like, yeah, it's probably over. And guess what? Geno comes down and he throws another interception, trying to throw to Jonte Thornton down the field. And Geno really put the ball in harm's way a lot throughout that game, and they were saying it in the broadcast also, where a dude would just have 2 receivers, or like not 2 receivers, 2 defenders on him, and Geno would just try to throw it into these tight windows. And I love Geno Smith's confidence, but Jesus Christ, I mean, he just needs to be better when it comes to taking care of the ball. And the Raiders still had a chance. They had the ball in the beginning of the fourth quarter. They were down 20-9, and there was a 3rd and 15, and Geno just threw his 3rd interception, and that practically iced the game. And I love Geno and his resilience, but there are just times where he has dumb interceptions at crucial moments in the game, and it just happened quite a bit in Seattle. And in Seattle, I mean, there were a few times where people would say, "Oh yeah, this is on Geno. He just needs to be better." But there were just other times where people would be like, "Oh, the receiver ran the wrong route or whatnot. There was a miscommunication." And it's like, okay, if that always happens to you as a quarterback, you have to take care of it. You have to have better communication with your receivers. I mean, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Patrick Mahomes, they would get that cleared up very, very quickly. And it just seemed for Geno, him and his receivers at crucial moments would just not be on the same page, and it would just come back to bite them. And if it always happens to you, then you just have to put that on Geno for sure. And don't get it twisted. Geno is solid. I love how in Seattle and even in Las Vegas, he's made the routine plays, which is something that Russell Wilson, at least in Seattle, would not do. But I mean, with Russ, there was more spectacular plays, where with Geno, there weren't as many spectacular plays. And because of that, Russ had a much more of a high ceiling than there was with Geno Smith. And Michael Sean Dugar, who covers the Seattle Seahawks for the Athletics, he's a big Geno guy. He talked about how Geno doesn't get the credit he deserves because whenever they play in prime time, the Seahawks always lose. And because like the a lot of football fans are watching those primetime games, they think, oh, this guy is not that good. And you know what? I mean, obviously, Geno is a good quarterback, but I think it's fair to like chastise him because of him not being able to win on primetime games. If you can't win on primetime games, then you don't deserve to be considered one of the good or better quarterbacks in the league. I mean, we had this with Kirk Cousins where Kirk Cousins would never win in primetime. And later in his career, he was able to fix that problem, especially when Kevin O'Connell came in town. Now, he can't win in the playoffs, but winning in primetime, he was able to do that later in his career. But Geno, if you can't win in primetime, then you don't deserve to be that guy. And to be fair to Geno, he did have some things going against him. The offensive line sucked. Remind you of anything? Ashton Jeanty was just not that great. There was just some miscommunication on a couple of handoffs, and I don't know if this is a Geno thing or a play calling thing. But excuse me, not Brock Purdy. Brock Bowers just needs to get more involved. The man had 5 catches for 38 yards. You have one of the more preeminent tight ends on your team. Why not use him more? I just don't understand why Las Vegas did not utilize him much more than they did against the Chargers. I don't know if it was just a defensive thing and he was bracketed and that's why they were not able to get the ball to him, but whatever. He just did not get the ball, and I hope that's something that they resolve because they have a great talent on their team and they should absolutely utilize him more. And now I want to talk about the Chargers. I really love this Chargers team. Even with Khalil Mack going out, the Chargers defense was able to stifle the Raiders. And it really seems like Justin Herbert is taking another step with Jim Harbaugh being the coach on this team. He was phenomenal. He was 19 of 27, 242 yards, 2 touchdowns, and they couldn't run the ball to save their lives. Um, Omarion Hampton had 8 carries for 28 yards. Najee Harris had 8 carries for 24 yards. And so far in these past couple of weeks, Najee Harris has been looking really, really bad. And they just might have to give more of a load to Omarion Hampton. And Herbert had 31 rushing yards, and he got the most rushing yards on the team. And, sometimes you just have to do that when your running backs aren't doing your job. And kudos to him for carrying that team. That 60-yard bomb practically ended the game, and luckily Herbert had good wide receiving talent, so he was able to distribute the ball. I'll give the Raiders this. Their defense looked really good against the Chargers, and if they had any offensive capabilities whatsoever, they might have been able to win this game. And I got to give Pete Carroll credit for this. I mean, at least in the first 2 weeks, the defense looks good. I feel like in Seattle, the Chargers would have absolutely just blown the Raiders out. But I think Pete Carroll so far, as of now, defense looking pretty solid. Let's see if it stays like that as they play some of the better teams like the Chiefs and the Broncos. And one more kind of like storyline from that game was about Tom Brady. He was up in the coach's booth, just I guess listening to play calls and whatnot, and just trying to analyze the team. And a lot of media people were talking about how it's unfair that Tom is a commentator for Fox and how he gets to talk to these other teams, and maybe there's a way that he can disseminate what these teams are doing and just what their strategy is to the Raiders, and the Raiders will somehow be able to just take advantage of it. um I don't know about all that. I don't think Tom is the type of guy to do that, and I know that's crazy to say because a lot of not Patriots fans, a lot of like Patriots haters would say, "Oh, Tom Brady not cheating," but I genuinely don't think that he's doing that. But I do admit that it is a bad look because Chip Kelly apparently said to one of the ESPN reporters that him and Brady talk a few times a week and they talk about game planning and they watch film together. Pete Carroll denied that, but I don't know. I think that Pete probably didn't want to put more fire to it, but I think what Chip Kelly said was probably true. So I understand why media people are being like that. This is just totally unfair. And the fact is that Tom Brady is kind of being above the rules to a degree. The NFL lifted that ban where he couldn't talk to like not opposing, talk to like players and coaches before he calls a game. I mean, they changed it to now it's remote, and they still have a practice ban on him, which is good. I'm totally okay with that. But I think lots of owners and lots of other people are being like, if I was a minority owner, I wouldn't get this privilege, but because of it's Tom Brady, he's getting this privilege. And I don't know what the solution is that the NFL can come to. I think they should probably keep it as is, honestly. Um, have Brady talk to players and coaches remotely. I mean, he needs to talk to players and coaches. I mean, that's a big part of the broadcast. I mean, whenever anyone is commentating on a game, they say, "Oh, X and X told me this," and it definitely adds to the broadcast. So I think that they should keep that because if he's not able to do that, then the broadcast just won't be as good, and that just won't be a good look for the NFL. So I think it's fine to keep it that way. And I think if as time goes on, there's like an investigation that the Raiders are benefiting from this, then I mean, they just have to ban Brady from just talking to anyone. And that's just what it is. But I just don't think that it's going to be like that. And honestly, I'm not sure how much Brady gets out of these pre-production meetings. Somebody from ESPN, I can't remember who said it, but they said that while coaches might be a little bit more guarded, I mean, players will open up because they see that it's another player in front of them, and they're more liable to just like say what they want to say. And you see it in these player podcasts where these players are much more comfortable talking to ex players or current players. So it doesn't surprise me that in a pre-production meeting they'd be more comfortable talking to someone like a Tom Brady, a Troy Aikman, or a Tony Romo, or Jason McCourty. Now, Aqib Talib, who only called games for Fox for like a year or so, said that they don't get anything out of those pre-production meetings, and it's just like regular media talk, like what they would get at a press conference when they talk to reporters. Um, I don't know what to believe. I mean, I'm sure that he gets like little tidbits of information, but I don't know if it's enough for them to have like such a competitive advantage. But I can understand why media people are a little bit disturbed by this, and it's definitely not a good look. But I think as time probably goes on, people will realize that it's not such a big competitive advantage. The Raiders aren't massively benefiting from it, and I think people will just move on. I'm sure there will be some people on social media complaining about it, but honestly, who cares about them? There's always going to be a segment of people on social media who will complain about just about anything in life. So, shouldn't really worry too much about them. Now, I want to move on from all that and talk about Miami and Buffalo. That's going to be the Thursday night football game tomorrow. Buffalo has been hot. They had that comeback win against the Raiders. They blew the Jets out after the Jets looked pretty good against Pittsburgh. And Miami is reeling to say the least. They're 0-2, gave up 33 against New England, got blown out by Indianapolis. I mean, the offense definitely looked better for Miami against New England, but losing against New England, who doesn't exactly have a lot of talent in the fashion that they did, doesn't bode well for Miami going into this game against Buffalo. And it's a short week for both of these teams. And I mean, one thing that benefits Miami is that in Buffalo, it's like 59, 60 degrees. So that might give them like some sort of chance because we know that when it's below 40 degrees, Miami just can't win a game to save their life. And I wonder if they get blown out, if ownership decides to just make some sort of change and they decide that Mike McDaniel has lost the locker room, because after this Thursday night game, they do have 10 days off because they play Monday night against the Jets. So that gives ownership and management a lot of times to evaluate things, just how it's going in the locker room. They might talk to a couple of players on that team to just gauge how McDaniels is coaching that team and whether he still has the voice of that team. So that's definitely something to look out for sure. I think that Buffalo honestly blows the doors off Miami because they're hot and Miami just doesn't look like the same team. And Tua did play well against New England. I mean, he threw a crucial interception with about 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter when Miami was down 30-27, which really ended the game for them. But he did throw for more than 300 yards. I mean, there were a couple miscommunications between him and Tyreek, and there was this one quote where Tua was saying something along the lines was that Tyreek shouldn't keep running because I just can't get the ball that far to him, and that was just freaking weird. And I wonder when Tyreek finally just boils over and decides that I just don't want to play for this team anymore, because I think that's definitely on the board for sure. So yeah, I think Buffalo blows this team out, and I think that there's a good chance that Mike McDaniel is the first coach fired in 2025. Wonder who the interim is going to be, but we'll have to see. Now I want to talk about the Minnesota Vikings. JJ McCarthy has a high ankle sprain, and it looks like Carson Wentz is going to start next week against Cincinnati. And honestly, I think that this is going to be good for JJ McCarthy. I watched that Sunday night football game against Atlanta, and he still looks pretty limited. There are just times where he just cannot throw the ball into tight coverage. He did not play a good game. He was like 11 for 21, 158 yards through two crucial interceptions. Can't get the ball to Justin Jefferson, and I wonder how long that's going to go on, where Justin Jefferson is just going to be okay with him not getting the ball, because for a guy who's had 1,500, 1,400 yard receiving seasons, if he's just going to be okay having like an okay mediocre season because the Vikings are interested in developing their quarterback for the future, I don't know how much patience he's going to exactly have for that. But I think it's good for JJ to just take a week off, or I don't know if he's going to be out for 1 or 2 weeks, but at least for this week, I think it might just look good for him to just take a week off and just reevaluate some things and just like, how the season is going and just like take a mental break. And last year, he wasn't really able to play. He got injured. Sam Darnold was a starter throughout the season, but now that he has been a starter, I know it's only been a couple games, and he's been able to practice, maybe just getting that 1 week off might make him just realize some mistakes he's doing and just how he can be better. I don't think that can hurt at all. Now, an argument can be that, oh, you're playing against Cincinnati. Their defense isn't that good. They have Jake Browning in for Joe Burrow. I mean, that might be a game for him to get his confidence back, but I don't know. I just don't think that when it comes to him, like getting the ball to his receivers and him looking limited, that's going to look amazing against Cincinnati. I'm happy to see that Carson Wentz is getting another shot, and I think that he'll be able to run the offense a little bit better than what JJ has been able to do in the past couple weeks. I mean, ever since that 2017 season he had in Philadelphia where he got injured with like in game 13 and he had an MVP level type of season, he's kind of stunk since then. And ever since then, he's bounced around. Indy traded for him when Frank Reich was the coach and when Frank Reich was his offensive coordinator in Philly. They were done with him after one season. Went to Washington. They were done for him. And there's just been locker room issues about him ever since his last season in Philadelphia. But I think going to the Rams and the Chiefs, where he can actually learn from two really, really good quarterbacks and Matthew Stafford and Patrick Mahomes and just see how they do things, just like, how they play quarterback and just how they're able to lead a team and just what it takes to just command a locker room and command an offense. I think that that'll do wonders for him going into this game, and he'll be able to just operate the offense at a much higher level, and that he'll be able to get Justin Jefferson the ball, and that should keep Justin Jefferson quiet for at least another week. And Carson Wentz has been our starter, had been a starter in Philadelphia since day one, since he was drafted. So I think these past few seasons should do wonders for him for sure. Uh, yeah, I think that Minnesota will get back on track. They'll probably win this game with Joe Burrow being out and Cincy's defense not being all that good. And hopefully JJ is able to reflect on his mistakes and, take some things going forward. I talked about this in week one in Chicago where he showed some resiliency after he threw that pick six and he was able to lead the team down to a touchdown, and how he was just getting his offensive line going after he did throw that pick six. And he's just shown, like going back to Michigan, that he can bounce back. And this season is going to have ups and downs, probably more downs than ups, but I think he'll be able to bounce back from it. He has a good coaching staff in Kevin O'Connell who wants to make this work since they drafted him so high. And as long as he shows some potential, things should look good going forward. So, yeah, uh, that's all I have for you guys today. I will be back Friday to break down what's happened between Miami and Buffalo, and I'll talk about some of the Sunday games. And yeah, we'll see if I'm right, if Buffalo just blows the doors off Miami. I think that'll probably happen, but we shall see. And yeah, thank you guys for listening. Please like and subscribe. Thank you.